Her words cut through the air like glass shattering in a silent room. "I haven't had any desire for you for months now," she said, her voice calm, detached, almost bored. "I'm only with you because I'm broke." For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't even breathe. We were standing in the kitchen, me holding a mug of coffee, her leaning against the counter in her robe. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds, but everything felt cold. Unreal. "What?" I finally managed to say, though the word barely made it past my throat. She didn't flinch. Didn't soften. Just looked at me with those grey eyes that once used to hold warmth. "You heard me, Daniel. I don't love you anymore. I haven't for a long time." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. I laughed, but it came out broken. "You're joking, right? You can't just say something like that and expect me to." She turned away. "I should have told you earlier. I just didn't know how." I set the mug down, my hands trembling. The sound of ceramic against granite echoed in the silence. "Didn't know how to tell me you've been using me." She exhaled sharply. "Don't twist this. You've known things weren't working." "No," I said, stepping closer. "I knew things were hard. I knew we'd been distant. But I didn't know I was just your damn safety net." She didn't answer. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and my heartbeat pounding in my ears. The smell of burnt toast filled the air. It was such an ordinary scene, yet everything in it felt foreign, wrong, tainted. "Is there someone else?" I asked quietly. She didn't meet my eyes. "Does it matter?" That was my answer. I turned away, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. But instead, I just stood there, numb. "I supported you through everything," I said. "When you lost your job, when your mother got sick, when you couldn't get out of bed for days, I was there. And now you're telling me you stayed because you needed money." Her voice softened, but not enough to sound human. "I didn't plan it this way. I just didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," I said. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a split second, I saw guilt flicker across her face. But it vanished as quickly as it came. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. I almost laughed again. "You just did it anyway." She turned to leave, brushing past me, her shoulder grazing mine like the ghost of a memory. "I'm staying with Rachel for a few days. I need time to think." I didn't stop her. The door closed behind her with a quiet click that felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. The house was still. Too still. Her coffee mug sat half full on the table, lipstick on the rim. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the air. I stared at it until my vision blurred. That night, I didn't sleep. Every sound, the creak of the floor, the wind outside, felt amplified. I replayed her words over and over. "I'm only with you because I'm broke." At some point, anger began to replace the numbness. I thought about how easily she said it. How long she must have rehearsed those words in her head. And then another thought crept in, the one I didn't want to face. If she was using me for money, what was she doing when she wasn't here? The next morning, I checked her social media. Everything looked normal. Photos from weeks ago, smiles, dinners, little captions about self-care and growth. But something caught my eye. A picture posted late one night. A glass of wine. Candlelight. 2 plates on the table. I zoomed in. Reflected faintly in the glass was a man's silhouette. My stomach turned. His name came to me quickly, Ethan. Her friend from college. She'd mentioned him a few times, always casually, with that little smile she thought I didn't notice. I opened her laptop, which she'd left behind. Same password as always. Within minutes, I found the messages. Hundreds of them. Late-night texts, long threads of conversation, hidden under a folder labeled freelance work. "Ethan, I hate that you're still living with him. Emily, I know. I just need a few more months to get back on my feet. Once I can afford to leave, I will. Ethan, I wish you'd just come now. Emily, you don't understand. He's my safety net. Once I'm stable, I'll be with you. Every word blurred as I read. My heart raced so fast it felt like I might black out. So this was the truth. She wasn't just using me. She was waiting until she didn't need me anymore. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for what felt like hours. There was no screaming, no breaking things, just the slow, quiet realization that the person I loved had already left long before she said the words aloud. That evening, I called her. My voice was calm. Too calm. Can you come home for a bit? We need to talk. She hesitated, then agreed. When she arrived, she looked nervous. Daniel, I don't think. I cut her off. It's fine. Just sit down. She sat at the edge of the couch, eyes darting toward the door. I placed the laptop on the coffee table and pressed play on the voice recorder. Her messages read out loud, her voice, her words, her betrayal, echoed through the room. She froze. How did you? Doesn't matter, I said quietly. I just wanted to hear you admit it. Tears welled in her eyes. Daniel, I didn't mean for you to find out like this. That's what you're sorry for. Getting caught. She buried her face in her hands. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I was scared. Of what? I asked. Of being alone. Of failing again. For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. But then I remembered every lie, every excuse, every cold night pretending everything was fine. You already failed, I said. You just don't realize it yet. She looked up, her eyes red. So what now? I took a deep breath. Now, you find out what it's like to stand on your own. I handed her an envelope, bank statements, cancelled cards, everything that tied her to me. Her lips trembled. You're really cutting me off. Yes. She stood there for a moment, searching my face for some trace of mercy. There wasn't any left. Then she turned and left without another word. When the door shut behind her, the house felt unbearably quiet again. But this time, it was different. The silence didn't ache. It just existed. Weeks passed. I heard through friends that she'd moved in with Ethan. But that didn't last long. He left her once he realized she had no money, no stability, nothing left to give. Sometimes, I think about calling her, asking if she ever found what she was looking for. But then I remember that morning in the kitchen, the way she looked at me like I was just a paycheck wearing skin, and I let the thought fade. Love can survive distance, arguments, even mistakes. But once it becomes a transaction, it stops being love. And once you've seen that truth, you can never unsee it.